Hi there, I'm Delphine. And yes, my sister mocked me in front of 120 guests at her $520,000 celebration, while our mother toasted to me being a draft they revised. But what really broke me wasn't the laughter. It was realizing this wasn't a slip. It was a script, and I'd been cast as the shameful shadow all along. Have you ever felt like your family had already decided who you were before you even had a chance to speak? What time are you listening to this, and where are you watching from? Drop a comment. I genuinely want to hear from you. The moment Lena Ray and I stepped out of the rideshare, the air clung to my skin like judgment. String lights sparkled above the rooftop, casting a dreamy glow over the scene, and the scent of rosemary cocktails drifted through the breeze. It was flawless, down to the floral ice cubes in the welcome drinks. And yet, I couldn't breathe. "Is this really Aunt Marla's party?" Lena whispered, her eyes wide as she looked around. "It is," I said, adjusting the bow on her dress. "It's her big night." Big night. $500,000 for a promotion celebration. That wasn't a party. It was a performance. A production. One I hadn't been cast in, but somehow wandered onto the stage anyway. The crowd barely noticed us. A few turned, offered mechanical smiles, then returned to their wine and whispers. No one asked how we'd been. No one asked anything. I spotted Reuben by the bar, nursing a drink, posture stiff. He saw me. Nodded. Nothing more. The distance between us stretched far deeper than the crowd. When Lena trotted toward the kids' table, I watched her hesitate. She stood near her cousins, hopeful. A beat later, they shifted their seats without a word. The gap, they left a message. Her shoulders slumped. I reached her before the tears could fall. "Sweetheart, why don't we go grab a drink? They have strawberry lemonade." She nodded, too proud to say anything. And then the microphone clicked on. "Oh, come on, everyone," Marla's voice cooed, dripping with theatrical joy. "Let's raise a glass to this night, to all the blooms in this garden of ours." She stood center stage in sequined navy, spotlight catching her cheekbones. Her voice rolled like a TED Talk on self-love. "Some of us flourish early, some of us take our time, and some," her eyes slid toward me, "just compost into inspiration." Laughter burst, half-hearted but loud enough. My spine stiffened. Someone clinked a glass behind me. Lena clutched my hand, her grip a question I couldn't answer. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I locked every muscle in my face and tasted the metal of shame on my tongue. A minute later, a second microphone lifted. Celeste. My mother. Of course. "I have to echo that, Marla," she said, smiling like a queen addressing her court. "You're the version we always hoped for. The revised draft we prayed might emerge." I stared at the flute of champagne in her hand, fizzing, golden, false. "Your sister was a beautiful first attempt," Celeste continued. "But life is about editing, isn't it?" Gasps. Then more laughter, more clinks, a ripple of discomfort covered by wine and fake cheer. I stood rooted, blood rushing so fast it throbbed in my ears. Reuben didn't look away. He didn't look at me either. I remembered the first time I disappeared from her life. Not metaphorically. When she cropped me out of every photo from my college graduation. Said the light was better with less clutter. I used to wait for their apology like oxygen. Now I just waited for my legs to move, but I stayed. Not because I forgave, because walking away again would mean they'd won, again. "Mom," Lena's voice was small. She tugged at my hand. "Why did Grandma say you were broken?" I turned my head, not toward her, but toward the crowd, or maybe just one person watching from the edges. I led Lena Ray to a quieter corner, away from the laughter and clinking glasses. The night air was cooler there, brushing against my arms like apology. I crouched beside her, fixed her dress ribbon, and steadied my breath. My chest still burned, but the sting had dulled into something deeper, something heavier. Shock had given way to numb resolve. I couldn't let her see me unravel. Not here, not tonight. A hush rippled through the crowd as the projector clicked on behind us. The giant screen flickered to life with golden-hued baby photos. Marla as a toddler in a frilly sun hat, Marla feeding ducks at the park, Marla on every family vacation we ever took. I leaned back against the railing and watched. No trace of me. Not in the background, not even blurred out. It was like I'd never existed. The slideshow cycled through moments I remembered vividly. The lake house in '99, Christmas in Vermont, the county fair where I broke my ankle chasing a balloon. In every photo, I was gone. Erased clean. Until one stopped me cold. A shot of Marla in a canoe at the lake, bright with sunlight. I had been sitting next to her that day, paddle in hand, soaked from laughing too hard when she splashed me. I blinked. In the photo, I was gone. The right half of the boat cropped away, the balance unnaturally centered on her. Beside me, Lena leaned in. "Why aren't you in anything, Mom?" I swallowed hard. "Some stories are rewritten, sweetheart." She tilted her head. "But you were there too, right?" Before I could answer, a voice behind us murmured, "That photo was from the lake house." Delphine was definitely there. I turned. Aunt Colleen stood with a glass of white wine, brow furrowed. A few heads nearby began to turn, whispering. Another cousin muttered, "I thought so too. Weird editing." I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The silence around me thickened, like fog pushing its way through the holes in a lie. The carefully polished narrative had cracked, just a hairline fracture, but it was enough. Enough for someone to wonder, enough for someone to notice. From across the rooftop, Reuben watched. His eyes held mine a beat longer than comfort allowed. There was something there, something knowing. I turned back to the screen. My hands trembled, but I steadied them by folding them in my lap. They thought they could erase me with curated pixels and laughter, but the truth had memory, and memory left residue. I wasn't erased, I was edited, but editors don't own the original. The screen paused on a group photo, one I recognized. The last family gathering before I stopped being invited. The crop was cruel, the edges sliced too clean. I remembered what had been there before the knife. Me, standing beside Dad, holding Lena as a toddler. I stepped toward the slideshow table, ignoring the stiffness in my spine. My hand reached out, closed around the clicker. "Let me show you one that's missing," I said. The hum of whispered questions followed me like smoke. A few heads turned when I passed, then turned quickly back, as if acknowledging my presence too long would burn them. I reached for a glass of water I didn't want, and stood near a marble-topped lounge table, trying to steady myself. The slideshow was over, but its damage lingered. And across the room, Celeste stared, arms crossed, lips unmoving, her eyes sharp enough to slice through glass. My phone buzzed. "Don't ruin this night for your sister." The message glared at me from the screen, black letters glowing like commandment stone. No please, no concern, just command, like always. I scrolled up. The same cold phrasing stared back at me, time-stamped years apart. "Don't make this about you. Don't start. Don't speak. Different occasions. Same voice. Same blade." 16 years ago, standing at my father's funeral, I held a folded paper in shaking hands. I'd written a eulogy, something raw and honest. Celeste leaned in, eyes hard, smile practiced. "This is not the place, Delphine. Do not make a scene." So I didn't. I sat down. I listened as Marla read from something she hadn't even written, basking in sympathy she hadn't earned. And I grieved in silence. My thumb hovered over the screen. This wasn't new. It was routine. A ritual of erasure, carried out in quiet, with the efficiency of a surgeon. And I'd played my part like clockwork. A voice floated nearby. "We all got them, Evangeline. That text. Last year at Grandma's 75th. I turned slightly, catching the tail end of a conversation between cousins near the entry to the lounge. Evangeline laughed, but it was hollow. "Same exact words. Don't ruin it. Who even talks like that?" Another voice joined in. She sent it to me before Dad's retirement party. I thought I was the only one. I stepped closer. My heart didn't race. It slowed, settled. This wasn't just about me. It never had been. I had just been the loudest disappointment, the one who didn't nod along easily. The message wasn't personal, it was policy. The idea of family peace was a mirage. It wasn't built on understanding. It was manufactured, stitched together from submission, held in place by guilt. I looked at my phone one last time, then I deleted the message. And for the first time in years, I wrote back. Number. It wasn't grand. It didn't need to be. It was enough. I stood straighter. I felt the click of something inside me shifting, not breaking, realigning. I crossed the room, weaving through half-hearted conversations and empty compliments. Celeste stood near the bar, wine glass untouched, her posture carved from ice. She spotted me coming and didn't flinch. I didn't either. I held up the phone. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the air like truth. You've sent this before. I walked toward the family table with Lena Ray's small hand wrapped around mine, trying to summon the kind of confidence you fake when there's nothing left to hold. A printed sign with guest names sat neatly at each seat, delicate calligraphy glinting under the chandeliers. Mine wasn't there. A young usher, barely old enough to shave, stepped forward and murmured, I think you've been reassigned." His voice cracked on the last word. "Reassigned," I repeated, not a question, just air turned to ice. He pointed to a dim corner near the catering doors, where clinking trays and tired staff loomed in the background. The table was half filled with people I barely knew. Marla's college roommate, someone's distant boyfriend, a cousin whose name I couldn't recall. One of them was actively scrolling through Instagram. "Guess we're the overflow," a man joked with a brittle laugh. No one replied. I sat, pressing my fingers against the linen napkin, the texture too smooth, too white. Across the room, the main table sparkled, crystal, gold accents, laughter flowing like wine. And there was Celeste, gliding past with a flute in hand. "Hope you're comfortable," she said, sugar-curdled. That was a last-minute change. Then she was gone. I didn't answer, I didn't blink, but under the skin of my palm, my knuckles whitened. It was the same old choreography, humiliation masked as logistics, degradation cloaked in grace. 16 years ago, I'd worn a taffeta dress to a formal family dinner. I'd been 14. I walked to the main dining room, only for Celeste to redirect me to the back. "Not polished enough to sit with guests," she'd whispered, adjusting my sleeve like that made it okay. I ate near the kitchen then, too, chewing around the lump in my throat. Now, here I was again, grown, composed, and exiled. "Excuse me," said a server, a woman with kind eyes and tight braids. "You look familiar. Were you at the Archibald conference last winter?" I nodded. I gave the keynote. "I thought so," she said, sliding something discreetly onto my table. "You didn't get this, did you?" It was a printed seating chart, neat, alphabetical. My name, Delphine Carter, was typed clearly at table 1. Marla's name had been added by hand beside it, in red ink. And mine, crossed out, also in red. I stared at it. The stroke was angry, rushed, familiar. I folded the paper, slow and precise, and tucked it into my clutch. My chest was too tight for breath, but my face remained still. They wanted me silent. They wanted me to disappear. But instead they placed me under the brightest fluorescent light, exposed, not erased. If they wanted me quiet, I thought, they shouldn't have made me visible like this. Across the room, Reuben was watching. He raised his glass slightly, not in cheer, but in recognition, and I nodded. Lena Ray approached Marla with both hands cupped gently around the glitter-covered frame. Her fingers trembled a little, smudging the tissue paper she had folded and refolded the night before. "I made this for you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, eyes wide with cautious pride. Marla took it with an exaggerated sigh, peeling away the paper like it offended her. The frame shimmered under the chandeliers, misshapen but heartfelt. Beads glued along uneven edges, a photo of Lena Ray and Marla in the center. A handmade heart nestled in the corner. How rustic, Marla said, holding it up like roadkill. Laughter sputtered around her, nervous, quick. Some faces turned away. Others watched with a smirk. Lena Ray's face contorted. Is it okay? Marla placed the frame down without a glance. Maybe next time use real glue, not glitter vomit. The chuckles turned into coughs. I didn't move, not yet. My jaw locked so tight my molars ached. Lena Ray backed away, blinking fast, looking for me. I met her eyes and nodded once, steady, sure. But inside me something cracked open. 16 years ago, I'd painted a card for my mother's birthday. Blue swirls, a crooked sun, "You're my warmth," scrawled in glitter pen. Celeste had smiled and set it aside. That night, I found it in the trash, soaked in wine. Now, here we were again. A different child. The same dismissal. Somewhere across the room, a guest let out a low, "Wow!" and raised their phone. The soft click of a photo. Then another angle. I caught the flash, barely noticeable, but there. A camera lens capturing shame in real time. Within minutes, the damage spread. A notification buzzed on my phone, then two more. I tapped them open. A video, 30 seconds long, Lena Ray offering her gift. Marla's face contorting, the snide comment, my daughter flinching. The caption read, $520,000 event but no grace for a child's heart. Thousands of views, comments flooded in. This is awful. Who treats a kid like that? She put love into that frame. I'm crying for her. That woman doesn't deserve a niece. I turned to see Lena Ray standing alone now, hands clasped in front of her, staring at her shoes like they'd betrayed her. I crossed the room in seconds and knelt beside her. You did nothing wrong, I whispered. Your art was beautiful. She nodded, eyes still down. I pressed my forehead to hers, letting her breathe me in. In my mind, a line was drawn, thick, permanent. They could come for me, call me weak, erase me from slideshows, and seat me near dumpsters. But her? They would never touch her again. I stood and opened my clutch. The folded seating chart with the red ink sabotage peeked out like a scar reopened. I ran my thumb across it, eyes fixed on the crowd, now buzzing, whispering, shifting. Time to stop absorbing, I thought. Time to act. I stood by the edge of the ballroom near the champagne tower that no one had touched in over an hour. Lena Ray was curled up in her chair, her curls limp, fingers tracing patterns into the satin hem of her dress. The video had gone viral. Again. The whispers had sharpened. Celeste watched me like I was a stain on the carpet she couldn't scrub out. I adjusted my heels, straightened my spine. Something had shifted. I wasn't waiting anymore. Marla found me backstage, right where the servers came and went in practiced indifference. She didn't smile this time. Her tone was calm, clinical. You were always just the prototype, she murmured. I perfected it. I didn't blink. Her lipstick was smeared. A nerve twitched in her cheek. Takes a coward to rehearse cruelty, I said. My voice didn't shake. She leaned in, almost amused. You only exist in people's memory because I give them a better version to compare. That one landed hard. I felt it, not just in my chest, but deep, old places. The years of trying to win praise, only to have it rewrapped and handed to her. My name, my work, my silence, all recycled for her victories. 16 years ago, I'd opened a scholarship letter in the kitchen, hands trembling. It was full ride, prestigious. I was 17, and I'd cried out loud. 2 days later, it was gone. Celeste said there had been a mistake. I found out years later she'd redirected the counselor's call, told them I wasn't accepting. Said it would break Marla's confidence. I became the ghost in my own success story. Back in the ballroom, I made my way toward the dessert station. The smell of burnt sugar lingered. Reuben appeared beside me, quiet as breath. I saw her with you, he said. She never deserved your restraint. I didn't respond. My fingers were curled tight around my clutch. Ruben's tone dropped lower. You know her first job? The one that started all this? The application came from your portfolio. My chest stilled. I submitted it anonymously. Marla had nothing at the time. But yours, it got noticed. I stared at him. You're saying you built the ladder she climbed. My throat closed for a second. My sketches, my designs, my late nights, handed over like party favors, then forgotten. Or worse, stolen and sold as hers. She doesn't know? I asked. She knows, he said. She just counted on you never speaking up. Something in me hardened, not out of revenge, but clarity. They'd been editing my life in red ink, but I still held the pen. I'm done playing small, I said. He studied me. You want the mic next? I smiled, slow and deliberate. Not yet. Let them talk first. The ballroom felt heavier now, like the air was waiting for someone to cut through it. I sat silently, no longer exiled to the shadows, but placed, deliberately, at the center VIP table. The upgraded seat Ruben had orchestrated spoke volumes, even if no one said a word. Marla's smile had vanished hours ago. She kept glancing at her phone, her hand twitching toward her champagne glass, but never committing. Celeste hadn't touched her flute. Her expression remained fixed, but her jaw was clenched tight enough to grind diamonds. Ruben stepped onto the stage, and the room hushed itself out of instinct. He adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and began. Tonight is about celebration, of growth, of resilience, and of those who've shaped that path, even if they never stood in the spotlight. A few guests looked confused, others turned, eyes flicking between me and him. True brilliance, he continued, doesn't always demand attention. Sometimes it builds quietly, without credit, without applause. But tonight, I'd like us to raise a glass to the unseen architect. Silence stretched like smoke. Marla's back stiffened. Celeste's eyes narrowed. My breath caught, but I didn't move. I didn't have to. Then Ruben paused. Some acknowledgments need to be made in full view. He stepped off the stage. The room murmured, heads turning as he walked straight toward me, and without asking, he extended his hand. I let him take it. He guided me across the room. The clink of cutlery paused. Half-hearted applause sputtered from a few tables, unsure of the rules now. I could feel Marla's glare like a beam of heat aimed at the back of my neck. I didn't turn. I sat tall as Ruben gently pulled the chair back for me. Right at the center of the table, center of the story. Finally. I didn't need to speak. The room said enough for me. Then something unexpected happened. Ariel, barely 20, an intern nobody had paid attention to all night, stood up from the side table near the floral wall. I wasn't supposed to say this, she started, voice trembling. But I have to. The ballroom stilled. Delphine. She paused, meeting my eyes. You were the only one who stayed behind that day. When I broke down in the copy room, you didn't just listen. You protected me. You taught me what quiet leadership looked like. Celeste abruptly stood. This isn't the time, nor the place. Sit down, Celeste. Ruben's voice cut through the air like glass on tile. A gasp. No one moved. Even the band stopped tuning. Celeste froze. Her lip curled slightly, but she obeyed. Ariel's eyes welled up. You changed my life. I just wanted people to know. I nodded once, slowly. No tears. Just that deep, aching thing that fills your lungs when you realize you're no longer alone in a room that once made you disappear. And then I looked at Ruben. He nodded. I rose from my seat, steady and slow. I raised my glass, once, just once. May I speak next? The room held its breath as the mic was passed into my hand. Fingers cold, pulse steady. Ruben nodded. Celeste stared, her glare sharpened to glass. Marla's expression split between defiance and dread, as if she knew a reckoning was moments away. But before I could speak, a quiet voice broke in. Excuse me, Ariel said, her voice tremoring but steady. Before she speaks, I need to say something. I turned slightly. So did everyone else. Ariel stepped forward from the side aisle, gripping a note card she clearly wasn't reading from. Her eyes scanned the room before landing on me. Most of you don't know me, she began, but this woman saved me. Murmurs began, soft rustlings, like an auditorium shifting in its seats. Ariel continued. I was an intern no one noticed. I showed up, fell apart quietly, and tried to disappear every single day. And Delphine, she never let me. She paused, collecting herself. She never asked for credit, never made speeches. She just showed up, every day. She made space for me when I had none left inside myself. She taught me how to stand again. Ariel's voice cracked, but she didn't stop. I was going to drop out of school. Her throat caught. I almost didn't make it, and no one knew, except her. She carried me through it, quietly. I didn't blink. Couldn't. Celeste took a step forward, hissing through clenched teeth. This isn't her story. This isn't about her. Reuben didn't even rise. He simply said, without raising his voice, "Sit down, Celeste." It was the first time I had ever heard her obey anything that wasn't her own script. Ariel took a shaky breath. I know what grace looks like now, because I saw it. In her. She stepped back into the crowd. There was no applause, just a stunned, reverent silence. Reuben approached the front of the stage again, holding something wrapped in a linen napkin. He carefully unfolded it. I found this beneath a plate, he said, almost thrown away. It was the glitter frame, Lena Ray's handmade gift. The room stared. I heard a guest whisper, "Oh no." Reuben turned it over and opened the back. Inside, he said, was this. He held up a printed, signed letter. It's an official offer for Delphine to lead the new youth mental health initiative our foundation is launching next quarter. $7 million of funding. Her vision, her work. Celeste gasped. Marla looked like the floor beneath her was about to crack open. Reuben looked directly at me. This frame was never meant to impress. It was meant to reveal. And Delphine, once again, you showed us who you really are. I didn't move. My body was grounded in some still force, but my chest, it ached with something that felt like breathing for the first time in years. He walked down and placed the frame into my hands. I didn't clutch it. I simply received it. I didn't cry. Instead, I turned slightly toward Marla. Funny how trash ends up holding treasure, I said quietly as our eyes locked. There was no yelling, no storm, just applause, reluctant at first, then real. The ballroom hummed with the memory of clapping palms long after the applause had died. People filtered out in pairs and murmuring clusters, heels clicking across marble, but I remained still. The night hadn't ended in triumph, it had simply ended. And somehow, that felt more sacred. Reuben approached from the side, his footsteps quiet like someone who understood the weight of silence. You didn't win the night, he said, leaning in just enough for me to hear. You reclaimed your voice. I didn't answer right away. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, I'd cry. Not out of grief, but out of release. Instead, I nodded once. That was enough. Later, tucked away in a quiet corridor near the kitchen, he held the glitter frame again. I could still see a faint smudge of Lena Ray's fingerprint in the corner. It wasn't random, Reuben said. I placed that letter inside it for a reason. I blinked. You what? I saw how Marla dismissed your daughter's gift. I needed to know how you'd respond. Not just in front of the room, but in your core. My breath hitched. I've been in rooms with people who talk beautifully and lead nothing. He paused. What you chose not to say spoke louder than any mic ever could. I swallowed hard. So this was a test. He shrugged gently. Maybe, or maybe it was an invitation to something that's always been yours. I looked down at the frame again. All that glitter and glue, holding something too big to measure. "So what now?" I asked. Reuben smiled. "Now? We build something real." I didn't realize until later that I never said yes. Down the hall, voices rose. Celeste was leaving, her face like cold steel. No words, not even a glance. Marla wasn't far behind, her fury unraveling as she shouted, "You set me up!" This whole thing was staged. No one stopped her. No one followed her. For the first time in years, I let the unraveling happen without trying to fix it, without running after the chaos with a mop and a stitched smile. A few cousins passed by, offering hesitant thanks, like I'd done something brave and irreversible. I hadn't. I'd just stopped disappearing. Lena Ray slipped her small hand into mine. "I like the quiet you make, Mom." That nearly broke me. We left soon after, without fanfare. I drove with the windows cracked, Austin's night air carrying the scent of cut grass and spilled champagne. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't need noise. Legacy, I thought, isn't something you inherit. It's something you repeat, or don't. 16 years ago, I tried to disappear so my daughter wouldn't see me fold. Tonight, I stayed so she'd remember I stood. Maybe my job isn't to rewrite the past. Maybe it's to raise someone who never has to escape it. My phone buzzed once in the passenger seat. A message from Reuben. "Board meeting Monday. You in?" I didn't smile. I didn't text back. I just kept driving. Frame beside me, the weight of it light for once. Maybe it wasn't the mic that flipped the celebration. Maybe it was finally choosing not to hold it. Sometimes, the loudest transformation happens in silence. I used to believe that dignity meant staying quiet, keeping peace no matter the cost. But I've learned, true peace doesn't come from erasing yourself to make others comfortable. It comes from standing, even when your voice shakes. If this story reminds you of a moment when you stayed quiet too long, ask yourself, was it grace or fear? Have you ever chosen silence to survive? Or have you ever watched someone else be erased and said nothing? Tell me in the comments. If this story touched your heart, type 1 below, or let me know where you're watching from. And if it didn't resonate, I want to hear why. Your voice matters here. If you believe stories like this should be heard, don't forget to subscribe. Let's keep growing, healing, and speaking together.